Good evening, everybody. This is Melinda, back at the Other Mother podcast, podcast for stepmothers and stepfathers if they feel that this resonates with them. I think I've mentioned, we all go through our ups and downs being a step parent, and I think a lot of people will definitely feel some of the things that I'm feeling. At the end of my last podcast, I said that I was going to talk around living with an ex in this episode. However, it has rapidly changed. I have some things I need to process that has just happened this week, and that is a huge change. We are going to become my stepson Riley's primary household, which is a very big deal. So we're literally swapping exactly what we are doing now, just different days. So we are going to have Riley every night, except for every second weekend, Friday, Saturday nights. And his mother will be picking him up from school Tuesdays and Thursdays, spending the afternoon with him and dropping him back here afterwards. So huge change for this little dude, huge change for our family, for everyone involved. It's massive. Yeah. So this came about, and it was a lengthy conversation, dominantly from Riley's mother. But from her, how this came about was feeling that he needs more of his biological father figure more, spending more time with him. He's growing up and just starting to feel that closer bond with males, with his same gender. Apparently Riley has been asking every now and then to come and move with us, and just feeling like sharing the time with him more. She basically said, paraphrase, she's monopolised his time for a while and didn't sort of realise what she was doing, just was trying to do the natural thing for her, and feels like she needs to share more and is offering that opportunity. So you all know me. I am a researcher, and I've only just started in my research, I guess, just around healthy ways to adapt and change, and what we might expect to happen during the changes while everything is settling, which obviously might take quite a long time. So far I have looked at a couple of documents. The one that I want to talk about today that I found some information from is by Peter K. Gerlach from the National Step Family Resource Centre. And so in this document, to start off with, it talks about healthy primary needs or reasons to change the household. So, as I mentioned, needing a balance of female and male nurturing from parents. So, Riley has had a lot of time of nurturing from his mother, and honestly, that's kind of normal. When I think they separated when Riley was 6 months old, so he's still in those early stages. Like, imagine if you were exclusively breastfeeding, or, like those maternal things that you do during that time. So he's 6 now. Some other things are needing frequency and intensity of child-related conflicts in homes to decrease. So I guess what that makes me think of is the child causing problems in between the partners or parents in that one home, and changing that to re-strengthen that and get rid of those conflicts. Strengthen primary relationships comes hand in hand with that. For example, marriage. Another primary relationship could be with a biological child, things like that. So maybe time has been taken away from those relationships and you need to rebuild that. And also to resolve family crisis. The example was if someone just randomly got a permanent disability and would need the assistance, and then having that respite with the child living in a different home. On this document, there's also a huge list of negative reasons why a child would be swapping homes. Right now, for me, I'm just trying to look at those positives. Sorry if you hear my little girl crying. She's with her dad. But yeah, I'm just trying to look at the positive reasons for change at the moment. I think the headspace and for me coping with the change right now, I need those positives. I will address some of those negatives later. But definitely feels like the main reason for the change is building that relationship with Cameron, his father. So obviously it's going to take time for everyone to adjust. More so for Riley, definitely. It's such a huge change for him. We're used to his behaviours and, everything. We're used to whatever he does. We do spend quite a bit of time with him in the long term. And over the holidays, we have week on, week off. So we spend extended periods of time with him. But he is now coming into this whole new space. His time is cutting down with his mother. He's entering this home that he knows, but he doesn't spend that much time here. Normally over the holidays when we have him for the week, we'll try and go away for a few days and things like that, and that's totally different. So some of the things that this, I guess, report or information package said, some things Riley would take time to adjust to is who is in charge of this household, who wears the pants, who gets final say. If mummy's telling me off for one thing, what's daddy going to say? That sort of thing. What is my role? So what is his role? How does he feel his role is in this household? Whether he feels like he's the big brother. We don't want him to feel like the outsider, obviously. We don't want that to be his role. But how does he fit into this whole scenario? How much power do I have? Which is very, very interesting. He already pushes boundaries. He's 6. They push boundaries until they're 18 or more. But how much power does he have? And, he would obviously have a little bit in our mind. He's 6 and he can make some rational decisions. Obviously not the big things, but there's little things. But I'm interested to see how he responds to something like that. And I find that really interesting, and that's definitely something I'm going to look more into. What's the routine of the household? And this is something that we're going to have to change because we're doing all the school drop-offs, most of the pickups, what we do on weekends, cleaning, cooking, bedtimes, all of that. So what is the routine? And before I mention Riley has some behaviours that we're going to look into, but routine is a big thing for him. And it's not that he gets upset if things are out of routine, but his behaviours can be erratic if there isn't a routine. So sort of if he's left to his own devices, he's causing manic. It gets a bit crazy. So routine is something that we're definitely going to have to look at and try and integrate more activities and scheduled activities into the afternoons or day. And the question he might ask is when will I see my other parent, my mother, which is rough. Like me just thinking about that, if I were 6 years old and I got put away from my mum, like my mum's my best friend now, that would be so rough for him. And I definitely think a huge part of that question and the effect that will have on him is going to be how we deliver this news and information to him. Like I said, he's had a voice and he has asked to come here and live here a couple of times, supposedly. And he does love staying here and he doesn't really like going home. He has Mason, his little mate, to play with. So yes, I think how we deliver the news is definitely going to be a huge deal. I would love, like I said, to post this link for you to the document that I currently have read. And as I go through, find more information, hop on my Instagram and I'll absolutely share it with you. I think this is something that happens more often than not. I have a lot of families from divorced homes and blended families that have changed their primary households at one stage or another, and yeah, sometimes it's inevitable for one reason or another. So, me. It's not all about me. A lot of this is going to be about Riley, and that's, we have to be selfless in this situation. We're selfless as parents anyway. But sharing with you what I'm internalizing at the moment, and trying to, get it out there and reason and have a think about things. I am having a ball of emotions right now. Everyone would be. I am nervous, I'm happy, I'm stressed, I'm quite prepared, but they're just a few. Confused is another one. I'm a ball of emotion right now, and I'm still trying to process through that. We have 2 weeks until he will be living here, so I'll be able to sit down and just gather my thoughts and my feelings, and hopefully try and get around that a little bit more within the next 2 weeks. I think the good thing is that none of this was court ordered, so there's no impending doom, I guess, on the situation. And not that all court orders are there for a reason, but it's definitely something that Cam has been really patient with, and he didn't want that feeling of war, going to court and fighting, because it probably wouldn't have been amicable, where things generally have been quite amicable the whole time, like I've said before, compromising with the whole situation. But definitely Cam has been patient, hoping this day would come eventually, knowing this day might probably come eventually, and it has for him now, and he hasn't had to spend money on lawyers. We haven't had to go to Relationships Australia or anything, because there's been no, I guess, there's just fight, I guess, for Riley. I think for myself, I've mentioned quite a few times I have anxiety, and I think it's going to be high for a little while, and that's just control over the situation, changes, coping with change. I'm normally not too bad with it, but this is a huge thing. Change at work is one thing, but change at home in your personal life is another. How I'm going to manage that is I'm going to continue to see my counsellor. These podcasts honestly have helped me so much. I started these after seeing my psychologist the first time, because, like I've said before, I don't like journaling and writing things down very much. But just talking and getting things out there. Man, my psychologist noticed a huge difference this week in my whole disposition and said, you look a lot calmer. And I really tested that to this. Another concern I have is absolutely how Mason will settle into this. He loves Riley, and when Riley isn't here, he is up looking around for him in the house. First thing he says in the morning when he wakes up is Riley here? Where's Riley? And we have to explain to him he's not here, he's at school, he's at his mum, wherever he might be. Just for a long time, well, for 2.5, nearly 3 years, this has been Mason's territory. The toys, the TV, bed, bedroom, everything. His little sister coming in, who's now nearly 5 months old, is such a different situation, because he sees mummy's pregnant, and we have those chats with him. We know that it's coming, so we try and prepare him for that. Your sister's coming, you're going to have someone around here all the time, and she starts off as a newborn, and he grows with her, and their relationship grows as she grows and he grows. Whereas this is like The Sims, picking up a person from here and putting them over here. It's the best. And if you haven't played The Sims, I'm sorry, but it's the best way I can think of exchanging it. Picking up a character by the head and just going, plop, this is now your life. With Mason, we really try and communicate with him anyway. So I'm hoping that communicating with him and being available to him is going to help the situation. Another thing is how long until Riley feels like this is his home. Like I've said, he's had lengthy periods here, but he doesn't sleep here every night. He doesn't wake up here every morning and come here from school, things like that. So that's going to be a huge adjustment for him. I'm just sitting here thinking, I can't even imagine what's going to go through his little mind, what is going on. And it comes back to, I guess, communicating with him who, what, where, when, why, how, but also just, oh my goodness, him processing all of that. You know, he's 6, he's not going to process it that quickly. Oh man. Anyway, the other concern is, like you guys know, he has some behaviours. And what are his behaviours in the response to change going to be? Because I feel some not so much acting out. He doesn't really act out. I just sense maybe some attitude or something. We'll see how we go. It's, you know, you can't put a time frame on it. It's like grief. Well, this is grief, isn't it? You know, I've done grief counselling courses to deliver grief and trauma, and grief is you can grieve from any type of change, whether it's moving schools, moving states, changing where you're living, losing just a friend, you know, cutting off a friendship, things like that. All of that is grief and trauma. And those are the behaviours. And what are the behaviours going to be with his grief and trauma? And is it going to affect him in the long run? What are his reactions going to be? And in saying this, I'm thinking, you know, we are going to seek some assistance, but maybe look at a child counsellor or a psychologist for him to get some help with the grief, trauma and changes, and try and normalise that for him. Might be a good idea. I'm going to look into that. So with all of this change, I've already mentioned we are going to be changing a fair bit. My husband is going to be changing jobs. He already knows where he's going, but he's changing so that he can pick Riley up from school without any concern. So the job he's moving to is like 4 a.m. till 2 p.m. type of work, something like that. So he will be going back to there. We are looking at building a house, but, you know, there's potentially the need to change house sooner, just with how this house functions. I don't know if it's going to function well. Our lease runs out in April, so I don't know. It's a chat to have. Our relationships and our roles in our household definitely going to change. Absolutely. I'm nervous. I'm still nervous about how Mason's going to react to all of this, I think. But, you know, kids are resilient, and hopefully it'll all be good. And we're also going to need new routines. So like I said, Cam's going to be changing his job so he can pick Riley up from school. I will probably have to do drop-offs. Riley's might have to do before school care for an hour before school starts, which is going to be a change for him. So everything's just going to be tipped on its head. Oh, this poor child. I'm being so open and candid. Like, oh, can you just imagine their little minds? Oh, the precious little things. But they're resilient, Mel. And we will help them process as best as we can. One of the weird things, though, and I don't think it's weird, it's, you know, it's communication, but, you know, Cam had the discussion with Riley's mother first, and then we talked about it and all that sort of stuff, and my husband goes, "Are you okay with this?" Strikes me as a really difficult question. Of course I'm okay with it. In our circumstance, yes, absolutely, and I think that we might be able to make a lot of headway with behaviours and things like that. He's not. I don't want to make it sound like he's bad. Like they are behaviours, and when you say behaviour, you think of this child who is just manic. He's not. He's not manic. He's not violent. He's none of that. he just has like his meltdowns and things like that. And something that we're looking at is autism spectrum disorder. So hopefully that puts it in perspective. But can you say no as a step parent if it isn't something you want? And people who I'm talking to right now on this podcast might want to say no. How do you do that? Is it a sit down discussion and you say no for this, and then you're pulling that opportunity, potentially affecting, those positive reasons as to why the child is coming into the home that I mentioned before? Or is it obvious that you would say no? And would your partner be relieved in that because they want to say no? It just strikes me as a difficult question and a difficult position to be in with that question. If there are people that are listening to this right now and have said no, I would love to know why. I just find it interesting from a different perspective, different circumstances. And this is the place. This is what I want. This is a place for us to share. It's so safe for you to say why you said no. Just what is our role in this? It intrigues me. So that's sort of where I'm up to at the moment with everything that's going on. Like I said, this was a bit of a spanner in the works. Very random podcast episode for me. I wasn't planning on it. But this is something that's happening in our life, and I said that I want to talk about what's going on, and this is current, it's fresh, it's real, and I'm processing through it. I will of course keep you up to date with what's happening with all of that. If I find more information and I have more revelations or convictions within myself, then I will absolutely share it on another podcast. Otherwise, next week I will get back on track and talk about what it's like living with an ex for me. We all do as well. We potentially all do as step parents, unless there's unfortunately circumstances where you don't need to work in with or have a relationship with an ex. But yes, I look forward to continuing to share all of this with you. It's clearly becoming quite the journey for us, and what will be will be. Alright, I hope you have a good week. Like I said, there's my Instagram at The Other Mother, and I will be popping up the link on there for the document that I referenced throughout here, and I will share things with you along the way. This is available on YouTube and is now available on Spotify. They processed it, so you can catch me on Spotify as well. Alright, see you everybody. Bye.